With a year full of handhelds focused on the Game Boy Advance, some looking like it, some acting like it, and most just trying to hit that resolution at a 2 to 4 times scale, Sega got kind of left behind until today. What's going on today, Internet? Selfish here with Retrospect. Today we're taking a look at the GKD Bubble. This is a love letter to the Sega Game Gear, and it does, well, it plays more than just Game Gear games. Let's take a look. Now, before we go any further, I want to give a shout out to my boy Javi over at Play Retro channel. He knew I wanted to review this for you guys because I'm a huge Game Gear fan just growing up with one, and so he sent me his. So thank you, Javi, from Play Retro. I will throw a link down in my thingamabob over to his channel. Now, let's get down to this unboxing, right? So one thing you'll find out about GameKitty or GKD is they are very simplistic when it comes to boxing. We'll say that they want to help the environment in some aspect or another. As we open the box here, we are going to find the handheld up here on top. We'll move that out of the way and remove this plastic out of the bottom. Here we will also have an origami accordion in multiple languages to teach you how to use the handheld. And then we also have an inspection sticker, passed by number 1. Good job, number 1. Good job. Hopefully you actually passed it. Now, one thing you are noticing, you don't have a brick, you don't have a charging cable, nothing like that in GKD devices. Again, they're more simplistic and they are saving the environment. Let's take a look at the handheld itself. Boom! Oh, boom! Here we go. Get this out of the way. And we have the GKD Pixel. Hold on, I need to save this. Javi left a fingerprint on here for me so I'm gonna frame him for something. Alright, he actually did send this to me with no memory cards or anything in it because that's how he received it. I have loaded it up and it is ready to rock and roll. I did put the stock system on for now. I will be following up with this video. I have tried a couple different custom firmware options, so we will go over those in the future. At least one of them, if not multiples, coming up. Now I'm going to go through the I/O real quick, and while I do that, I will put the specs up here on the screen for you. Mostly you just need to know that it's got a 3.5-inch screen, a 3566, you know, things like that. We'll start here on the top like we always do. We do have our shoulders and triggers. They are very loud. I do not recall, but I do not believe having any buttons that sounded like this on the Game Gear. I just don't think it happened, but that's okay. Everything else seems pretty positive here. We have a reset. We do have a power button, and we also do have an SD hole. This one here is your system hole for your operating system. We also have a 3.5 hole that's going to be for audio, and we do have an HDMI micro hole right there for your viewing pleasure. On the back here, we have very simplistic, and if I remember right, and I just can't find my Game Gear right now, otherwise we'd have it sitting here as a prop in the video if nothing else. I'm pretty sure that it had these goofy square things on it if I recall correctly, and I believe that's why that GKD put those on here as well, but everything here looks pretty much to par. There is nothing on the left or the right of the device except for screws. That keeps everything looking clean without screws all over the place. On the bottom of the device here we also have a couple of screws, but we do have our volume up and down, and then we do have our Type-C hole for charging, as well as an SD hole, and that one here is going to be for your games card, which oddly it doesn't say on there anywhere, but that's what it is. We'll move right along here to the front. Like I did state, we do have a 3.5-inch screen. On top of that, we do have some good buttons. This here is your menu button, which on the original Game Gear is the start button, and then you start and select down here. These are very, very clicky, but this menu button up here feels pretty good without all the loud noises. We do also have some good face buttons here. The original Game Gear only had a 1 and 2 button, which are the A and B on here. It is kind of nice. They did make these a little flatter and a little bit bigger. I don't know if you can see that in the video, but these are more of a flat, so you can feel the difference when you are playing. And Game Gear games, typically, you're not going to need these because, well, these buttons didn't exist, but if you want to play outside the Game Gear system, these buttons are available for you. They also kind of work as like a turbo button in a lot of instances. We do have our D-pad over here. It is a circular D-pad, and it actually pivots pretty well. It's actually better than I thought it was going to be. I believe this is GKD's first attempt at one of these circular or round D-pads. I don't really have any complaints here with this. And then we do have our Switch style analog sticks. It is odd to put Nintendo parts on a Sega remaster here or replica, but these didn't exist before anyways, and they are just like your regular Switch style sticks. These do have L3 and R3 on them. Now we're going to go through the OS here real quick. You do have two options when the device is booted up or is booting up. And as it comes up here, you can go into the GKD operating system or into Emulation Station. After you go into Emulation Station, it will become your default unless you tell it to do otherwise. And I would recommend just booting into this. But if you do want to go over to Love Child, which maybe we should touch on first, you just go in here. And if you're going to quit, you can just go to Love Child and it will actually open the Love Child operating system up. They have a beautiful logo, really weird name. It's kind of creepy. This can be kind of set up the way you want it to be. There's a lot of options here. here. Now here you do have all your options, but you do have multiple different ways you can play games, which will give you different options. Some are more arcade based. It's kind of like when you have the games folder and then you have the RetroArch folder, and in the games folder on like an Anbernic device, that folder is going to go to standalone emulators typically, where the RA folder is going to go to RetroArch. That's typically what you're seeing here as far as the different folder options, because again, you're seeing NES in all of these, but this one here is set up more arcade. Here's your NES. These are the trial ones, or ones that they're actually testing, so it gets a little confusing. So like I said, I would recommend, if you're not used to Love Child, which I've used it enough where I can get away with it, but if you're not used to it, just boot into Emulation Station. Again, that first time, if you just hold the A button when it tells you to, it'll go into Emulation Station. You'll never have to go back again. And then once we're into Emulation Station, we obviously have something that we're used to looking at, and we do have a lot of good options here as far as that goes. So it's your typical Emulation Station build. If you hit the start button like we did before, you do have access to all the menus where you can update your games list, change the cores, things like that. You do also have a collection settings. You can make your own collections or modify the collections that already exist on here. So say I wanted to start a pinball collection, I could put all my pinball games in a collection that way. I'm just using pinball because I like playing pinball games on handhelds for some reason. I think I'm better at it than I am in real life. Kind of like cheating, I guess. I don't tilt so much. Anyways, the system settings here is going to give you your time zone, all that kind of stuff, your brightness. As you can see, this is at max brightness right now. If you keep it on auto detect card, it will read the card when you put it in the TF slot on the bottom. Otherwise, it has a hard time finding it, and it's going to look for your games on the main SD card with your system on it. Here you do have the option to change your performance settings, and if you want power saving mode, you can use that here as well. This doesn't have the world's biggest battery in it, but it does all right for what it is. So I'm not overly worried about the battery settings. I'm not going to play this for, more than 2 hours at a time, likely. That's probably not true. Actually, I played more than 2 hours at a time yesterday, but most of the time I probably wouldn't. Here in our UI settings, we can change that theme that we have there. Right now, I just have one of the themes that was already downloaded on here. You can go back and download more themes if you want to. How you want your games list, stuff like that. I like the detailed lists. Now, one thing with this is you can't scrape anything but arcade games. This was on the Pixel 2 as well. I don't know what the deal is right now with the new firmware builds being limited to only scraping arcade, but we have seen that across the board on a lot, not across the board, but we have seen that on a lot of them lately. I'm not exactly sure why that is, but it is something we are starting to see. If you want to sync a Bluetooth controller to it, you can here, and then when you use your HDMI out, you will have control. You can just set this down like it was a Switch or any of the other handhelds you might own, and you can power it at the same time as your power comes through there and your HDMI goes out through there. It is interesting that they went with a micro on here. I'm sure it's just for fit, but you can put a mini or standard USB on this particular SoC. We've seen it before. In our sound settings here, nothing crazy. It's going to have your volume, stuff like that. One thing I did forget to point out is this does have 2 stereo speakers here on the bottom. I believe they're each 1-watt speakers. I haven't seen it specified, but I'm pretty sure those are the speakers that are in there. Obviously, you do have the ability to get on internet and set up things like Sync Thing in here if you want to sync your saves with your computer. And again, in Scraper, I know I said this before, but Arcade Database, only option we have, which is a real unfortunate thing because on mine, it only scraped the Naomi library. It didn't scrape anything else. I pretty much only loaded Sega on here and a couple of PlayStation and a PSP game just to try them out as a trial to see how they played on here. But once I'm done with this here, we're just going to go strictly Sega games on here because I think that's the way to go. So I did load a couple other systems on here, but I figured with N64 and Dreamcast, we pretty much would know how things were going to go. But I did put PSP and PS1 on here also for testing, so we can get a good feel for how those play. Now, this isn't some earth-shattering SoC. We've seen the chipset in this 100 times before, so it's nothing crazy like that. But I think what we're going to do now is we'll get into a little bit of gameplay, and then we'll talk a little bit about it at the back end of it, and what I do and don't like about this handheld, and how I feel they did on hitting the nostalgia factor. I am absolutely impressed with the GKD Bubble. It hits all of my feels in all the right places. It does pretty well with gameplay, as you saw. There are some, obviously, limitations to the SOC that is available on here, but what it can play, it does play well, and it really does feel like, I don't know what it is. It just feels like a smaller Game Gear. I was and still am really into Game Boy Advance for emulation, but one thing that I really have been missing in my life is emulating some of those games I grew up playing on the Game Gear specifically, and so this is giving me that opportunity, even though I could play it on other systems, and probably some of them even with better resolution and more picture perfect than possibly this one. This just with the feel of it as well, and I look down and I feel like I'm holding a mini Game Gear. I really do just enjoy this experience a lot because of that. There are a few goofy things like these start and select buttons being so damn loud. I don't know why they do this on handhelds, but everybody does it. GKD tends to be a little bit more premium, so you'd think they would get away from this. The last GKD device that I looked at that actually came out after this was the Pixel 2, and here we're talking about an all-metal shell and everything else, right? So I just feel like they have the ability to build quality that doesn't have these clicks on it. Also, another thing that really bothers me about this, I'm sure I could fix it if I opened it up, is, and I don't know if I can show you on camera here, everything's going by so fast. Here, let's turn off the screen. You can actually see, I don't know if you can, yeah, you really can't see it well on the camera. There is a gap between the ring at the bottom of the stick and the wall there, and so there's like some open space there, and you can see the PCB and stuff right through there, and it really bugs me, or whatever is behind there, but you can definitely see past the stick. The right one doesn't have this problem, so I think it's just off center, so I'm pretty sure I could fix it by opening it. I just don't like the idea that I have to open it and fix it when I shouldn't have to do that. And these almost feel like they're glued down, so hopefully they actually are screwed and I can move that, but we'll find out. I will take this apart and take a look inside and see if I can't fix that, but right now that is something that's really bugging me. The other thing is the finish isn't bad, and honestly the original Game Gear wasn't fantastic either. I mean, that was old school, older plastics and stuff. This is almost like an ABS plastic you would find on a Fisher Price, like one of those little cars with the yellow roof. Feels like the red plastic on there that's in the doors and stuff, which makes it feel kind of cheap for really not a cheap handheld. It shouldn't have to feel cheap to look nice, but it does look nice, so it's really hard to decide if it overcomes the cheapness, or I haven't really been able to put my finger on it. I don't like the idea that they use this plastic. It doesn't feel great, but it doesn't feel terrible. It's not my favorite plastic to hold on to though for longer gaming sessions, but it's better than some of the ones we've seen, so it's kind of a toss-up. I again just think it makes it feel cheap, but other than that, I mean, everything else in here I really do like. I think that the build quality itself is actually really good. Aside from, you know, it feeling cheap, it's very solid. They didn't waste any space here. I mean, I feel like they crammed everything they possibly could in here. I do like that they made these buttons smaller up here versus the A and B or the 1 and 2 buttons. They made these buttons smaller, just to kind of pull them away a little bit so that, you know, it really differentiates that this is how it really was. It would have been cool if they would have done what Ambernick did and made these red so they blended in, but it's fine with them being there and being a different color. This is more like a 2025 Game Gear versus an original Game Gear, so in 2025 we have a smaller Game Gear, more powerful, and obviously we can add more buttons. I mean, shit, we added sticks, right? So I think that's okay. I think everything's well placed too. For the way you're going to play this device, I think that having the D-pad up on top is proper for this particular device. You're not going to be playing Nintendo Switch or PlayStation 2 or GameCube or anything that's stick-centric, so I think that this is a good way to do this layout. Overall, I'm really happy with it. It's everything I kind of hoped it would be. The things that I have bad to say about it are just nitpicks, but really, I can make everything on here work and remind me of my old Game Gear, which is exactly the nostalgia feels they were going for here, and they frickin' nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. Let me know your thoughts on the GKD Bubble, and let me know, did you have a Game Gear growing up? Did you have a Game Boy Advance? Let me know down in the comment section down below what kind of handheld you used when you were growing up, and if this brings back those nostalgia feels for you. If you want to get yourself the GKD Bubble, I will, as always, leave links for you down on my thingamabob down below where you can pick one of these up. I'll probably put a couple different links on so you have some options. But anyways, that's all I got for today. Don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, share this video with your friends because sharing is caring. It also helps grow the channel. And don't forget to watch one of these videos that's up on the screen right now. YouTube chose it for you. They know you better than I do, so I just let them make the choosing, and they think you're going to like it. But that's all I got for today. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.